Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Strategic Business Growth Multiplier. There's it is on the screen. It's very good to see you. Thank you for joining me today. Took a little bit of time off. It was needed, very much needed. So it is good to see you back. If you guys have missed these in the last week and a half, I took a little bit of time. I had a residency that I was a part of for my PhD program that I'm going through, and also had just needed some time. Just needed to take a break. My brain was running a little too hot, so it was great to have some time off. But it is also really good to be back, and I'm really excited to put these series of classes together. And the cool thing is, I had a few of you reach out to me already for the boot camp, and I've got a boot camp coming up in 3 weeks. No, I'm sorry, in 2 weeks. So it'll be this week from a week from this coming Saturday, and I think that is the 21st, and that is a 3-hour session, and it is all we're going to do a really deep dive in the financial component of that. So if you are interested, I'll make sure that there's a link put up. I'll put a link up at the end, but there's a small cost to that. But the cool thing is you also get the access to the money and the Money and Finance Advanced video course. So you get the full access to that in addition to the 3-hour boot camp. It's a really it's a no-brainer deal. But again, of course, if you don't like it, you guys can get your money back too. So never had anybody do it, but it was the first, I suppose. So it's good to have you guys here. Again, my name is Mark Dolfini of Strategic Boardroom. You are here because you are wanting to grow your business. Maybe you've got a business that you are trying to grow, and you are or you just have a business idea that you're trying to grow. So that's really what we're here to do today, is talk about that in the Strategic Business Growth Multiplier. So if you have not already, looks like we've got a bunch of people on YouTube. We've got a few people on Eventbrite. A little light on Eventbrite today. That's okay. It's good to see you guys. Glad you can make it. Few people on LinkedIn. All right. So it's really good to see you. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Go ahead and let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in so I can make this relevant to you. And that's something that's always helpful for me, again, as I'm having conversation. And just so as you're looking to grow your business, there's just a couple of different things that as you're trying to grow your business, it's good for you to know now. And I'm here to tell you that there's a lot of stuff out there. And I don't know if any of you have recognized this, but there's a lot of stuff out there right now on social media about growing and scaling your business. And I find that quite curious. It's actually been a trend that I've been noticing for quite some time. So if you have any sort of business interests or anything like that, again, I see you're joining me. Michelle, you're in a nonprofit. Very good. Nonprofit development. Excellent. Let me know where you're from, Michelle. It's good to see you. So this is where you've got, so I'll just go ahead and put that up there. Let me know where you're from and what line of work that you're in. So the interesting thing about this is I've talked with a lot of different folks and who are very interested in growing their businesses. They're very interested in even scaling their businesses, and growing and scaling are not exactly the same thing. Oh, you're from Minneapolis. Very good. It is, love me some tater tot hot dish. I love it. I got into conversation with somebody about that the other day. They're like, oh my gosh, we are known for our tater tot hot dish. If you have never, not to go off on a tangent, but if you have never visited Minneapolis, if you end up in the Twin Cities, you have got to find, there's restaurants all over. And if you see it's called tater tot hot dish. They call it tater tot casserole, I think too, right? But man, it is so good. It is so good. I think they have to have that there because the winters are so horrible. But yeah, it's really good stuff. You're saying our favorite food. I'll tell you, I've got a few friends who live up that way, and they live and die by their tater tot hot dish recipes, and it's a thing. It's an amazing thing. So all right, we've got Jalen is in Nashville. Oh, got some good friends who live down in Franklin, just south of Nashville. PR and communications, mainly photography and multiple businesses. Excellent, Jalen. Well, it's good to have you here. So, the main thing I'm talking about when you're looking at growing a business or scaling a business, and I see this all over social media. I mean, let me know if you have seen this on social media as well, because I cannot be the only one they're advertising to. Yeah, hot dish is right. The rest of the world calls it casserole. That's right. Yeah, sorry. Talking about tater tot hot dish. I promise I won't go on that. But if you have an opportunity to have it, it is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like, it's a food that just like, it'd probably sustain you for weeks at a time. Anyway, just by one meal. So The one thing I want to talk to you though about scaling and growing and scaling your businesses is the fact that some of you maybe want to grow, some of you may want to grow or just get to the next level. Maybe you're looking to scale because again, growing is more linear, scaling is more geometric, or exponential rather. But you cannot scale a broken business model. And I also want to tell you that not all businesses are scalable. And I see this all the time where people are coming in with business ideas that are probably good. They're probably making decent money, but they're not scalable. And the reason for that, there's lots of different reasons for it, but it all has to do with all the different components that are going on in the market. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but not all businesses are scalable. And as they grow bigger, they actually have to have more administration. So because they have to have more administration, it makes them more expensive and it becomes cost prohibitive, or they just can't charge enough to where it actually makes sense to grow. That said, back in 2009, when I was going through my entire mess of all these different foreclosures, I was able to turn a $6.5 million portfolio into $1.5 million in like 8 months. Yeah, you heard that right. $6.5 million to $1.5 million in like 8 months. So I was going the wrong direction. But the reason that happened, and there was lots of different things that were going on with that. But the reason that I had to recognize that I was scaling my business on a broken business model. And I wish I had learned that lesson a much cheaper way, but I guess losing $5 million worth of real estate in, overnight practically was a good lesson to learn, but I'm just letting you know that. So as we walk through this, it doesn't necessarily mean that your business shouldn't happen, because what I did was on the other side of that fallout with that business is I started doing a handyman business where I was earning somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500 a day. So because I was earning $1,000 or $1,500 a day, I was like, okay, cool. Could I scale this? I couldn't, because I always felt like I was hiring my replacement, or I was always feeling not hiring my replacement, rather, I was feeling like I was hiring my competition, hiring and training my competition who, oh, he's charging $70 an hour. Well, I'll do it for $50. And next thing you know is that you've got this whole competitive landscape of people doing a little bit more for a little bit less, a little bit more for a little bit less. And before you know it, no one in that landscape is making money. That's what I'm talking about. So I just want you to understand that as we go through this today, it is amazing. Yes, it is. All right. Man, I'm hungry for tater tot hot dish now. All right. So here's what I'm going to talk about. As we get through this today, I want you to think we're going to be taking a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. So this is a top-down approach to managing both your life and your business. And if you are looking to grow, if you are looking to scale, again, just understand that we're not going to get super granular on a lot of things, because that's the difference between being a strategist and being a tactician. Think of a strategist like a battlefield general, someone who knows what everybody else's job is, but doesn't necessarily know what that job is. So a battlefield general may not even know how to drive a tank, but they know the capabilities of what that tank can do. They may not know how to fly a jet, but they know that that jet can put rockets on time and on target exactly when you've got a group of Marines heading around the other way, getting ready to assault it from the rear, right? So that's what I'm talking about, is a battlefield general has to know the capabilities of everything, but doesn't necessarily have to know how to do everything. That's the difference between being strategic and being tactical. So you have to remove yourself from those tactics as much as you possibly can. So again, I'm not saying you can't be a good tactician. A tactician is good at very specific things, but a strategist will group together the best tacticians. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So again, I'm not going to get super granular on things until I know the big picture of what's going on in your life. And again, because this is obviously not the platform for that. I just want you to understand that's what we're going to talk about in terms of strategy. So who's this for? This is for established business owners with employees. Now, it could be for entrepreneurs who don't even have a business yet, but know they're going to be bringing other people into their organization. And that could include, by the way, not necessarily employees, but that could involve bringing on subcontractors. It could bring on other vendors, other suppliers, things like that. But you cannot do it all yourself. And I want to make this point. This is not for the solopreneur or the one-man army who wants to stay that way. Listen, no disrespect if that is you. Again, I mentioned earlier, that's what I did when I was doing my handyman service. I was the one-man army. I was working sometimes 12 to 14 hours in a day. Granted, I was making $1,000 to $1,500 a day, but that was completely unsustainable. And there was no way I was going to be able to do all the things myself. Guess what was getting missed? The bookkeeping, the lead generation, the sales component. Like there was all different. I was just so operationally busy because that's what I had to do so I can gain a toehold to climb out of that $5 million hole that I created. Okay. So I fought being a solopreneur for years, and I became bottlenecked when I tried to do everything myself. And again, it's not that you can't do everything yourself, but the reality is you can do only one thing at a time. So when you have others in your organization, that you can do multiple things at a time. Is that making sense? All right. So it is. So that's what I want to talk about. Is bringing other people into your organization is what has a scaling effect, has a growth effect on your business. So as we get to the end here, again, I see a few other people joining. Just let me know where you're at and what line of business that you're in. So what I want you to do, I want you to think of this the standard. We're going to talk about this for another hour or so. But the difference between seeking knowledge to understand versus seeking knowledge to take action. Like I get to the end of this a lot of time, and people are like, "Oh wow, that was really great." Okay, that's fine. But at this point in my career, I actually don't need the applause, although I do appreciate it. I appreciate the accolades. But this is about you. This isn't about me and applause. This is about you, about seeking knowledge. Just, yeah, that was a good auditing the class sort of situation versus, okay, these are the things I'm actually going to take action on. So whether you choose to, I'm going to ask this question again at the end, whether you choose to answer it or not is entirely up to you. But what I want to make sure that you understand is, what specifically are you going to take action on? That's what I'm most interested in, because that's the thing that's going to move the needle. Telling me that it was amazing isn't going to move the needle. You taking action is what's going to move the needle. Make sense? All right, so let's get to the agenda. So one other quick question I get quite often is, especially for those of you who sign up through through Eventbrite, you will be getting access to the replay if you signed up through Eventbrite. So if not, and you're watching this on LinkedIn or watching this on YouTube, that will the replay will be posted on YouTube. So I just want to let you know if you did not sign up through Eventbrite for this. So if you are interested, you will get that sent automatically to your inbox, because I get that question all the time. So I know some of you had already emailed me saying you have to hop off a little early. I totally get that. So let's get to the agenda. All right, so the agenda, first and foremost, we're going to be talking about the systems component of your business, and then we're going to be talking about the psychology component to business. Businesses take both. They take a perspective of both systems and psychology. You can't have just one or the other, because the business will not run appropriately. It won't run well without both a systems component and a psychology component. We'll then talk about the 4 core functions of business. We'll get a little bit more granular, and then we're going to talk about actually setting to scale and having controlled growth, and growth that's not going to metastasize into something terrible, right? So let's get to, and then finally we'll talk about the resources at the end. A couple different resources that I have for you. Again, I mentioned earlier on, if you're just joining me now, I do have a 3-hour boot camp coming up on the 21st of March if you are interested. So I'll make sure that is listed in the show notes, and it also comes with a free access to the Money in Finance Advanced video course. So it's not just the 3 hours, you also get the video course as well for one price. All right, so we'll talk about that at the end. All right, so in this business approach, like I mentioned, it takes both systems and psychology. So let's unpack the systems component of this first. So when you're looking at the systems, everything that I'm going to be talking about in the systems component is related to what I wrote about in this book behind me over my shoulder, and the one on the screen here, The Time Wealthy Advantage. And that is available if you are looking for it. You can, if you're inside the United States, you can get it at strategicboardroom.com, or you can get it on Amazon. But I'm not here to push the book. I just want you to understand that if you are looking for a deeper dive into this methodology, into this framework, you can get it at either of those two places. So the VIPER framework is an acronym for Vision, Infrastructure, Process, Execution, and Reporting. So that acronym, and everything starts, again, this is a top-down approach to how to address both your life and your business. So again, if you're looking for this, it looks like we had a few extra people join us. Let me know where you're at and what line of business that you're in. So we're talking about the VIPER framework, which is the systems component of the business, right? You have systems and psychology. We're talking about systems right now. The vision component, it really is about where you want to go. And it's about where you want to go from two perspectives, from a vision perspective, from a personal vision perspective, and a business vision perspective. So your personal vision is pretty straightforward. This is nothing cryptic about it. It's where do you want to go? Where do you want your life to go? Michelle, what do you want your life to look like if it wasn't defined by income generation? Jalen, where would you want your life to go if it wasn't defined by income generation? So think about that. Think about if your life description wasn't a job description, right? If your job description, what you do for money, wasn't also your life description. Make sense? So, because think about, you're standing around at a backyard barbecue, and what do people do? Oh, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Because you don't really know what to talk about. But that's the thing to really start to think about. What would you do if your job description wasn't also your life description? Malawi is from Africa. Excellent. Sam, let me know what line of work that you're in, and what you're hoping to accomplish for today. So when you're looking at your personal vision, where do you want to go? Now we're going to say, cool, it doesn't have anything to do with how you make money. Now we're going to reverse engineer that from a business vision perspective. So you're going to say, cool, where do you want to go? Now we're going to reverse engineer that with the business vision and say, great, how are we going to get there? That's when the business exists to serve the personal vision. It's interesting, over the course of, I don't even know, the last 10, 15 years, I really started to attend a lot of conferences and seminars and even masterminds. If you've not ever been part of a mastermind, I would really encourage you to check into them, because they're phenomenal, especially when you're looking to grow and you're not anywhere near the level of the people that are in the room. But when I would sit in these scenarios, and I'm sitting next to people that I knew well, and these people were making 6 and 7 figures a month, like net, like they're bringing home 6 or 7 figures a month. And meanwhile, their life is a disaster at home. And you know what they were more worried about? They were more worried about that extra comma in their bank account, that extra, 100,000 or 500,000 or extra couple million in their bank. That's what they were more worried about, even though their life was a complete mess. And all I'm saying here is that what they had done is they created a business vision before they ever gave any thought to that personal vision. And the danger in creating a business vision before creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you, that sucks. That part, I have done that, and it's just an empty well that just never seems to get filled in. And I, for those of you who might be younger, I'm in my 50s now, 53. And for those of you who might be younger, in my 20s, you weren't going to tell me any truth to this. There was no truth to this whatsoever. And I grew up through my 20s, halfway through my 30s, almost turning 40, still chasing this paradigm of having this business vision and making all this money. And meanwhile, life is chugging along, and I'm missing all these amazing events that just life was passing me by. And that is really when things really started to change for me, because I was like, all right, look, and I hear it like, yeah, let me make that 50 grand a month or 100 grand a month, and then I'll worry about that better life. The thing was, the same people that were sitting next to me in those seminars, they said the same exact thing, and they never stopped to actually build a personal vision. So I'm going to talk about this just for another minute, and then we're going to move on. The rest of it's going to be all about business. So don't feel like being super preachy. I don't want to be. I'm not trying to be. I just want you to focus on this personal vision. And one way to do that, one way to consider that, is through a 100th birthday speech. So let's pretend, okay, so Samuel or Michelle, you're turning 100 years old. Jalen, you're turning 100 years old, and there you are. And I want you to think about what you would say during your 100th birthday speech. Who would you want to be there, and what would you say? Think about what you would want others to say to you after you were done speaking. And what would be the message that you would want people to carry outside the room to other people when you were done? Think about that. And if, for some people, and I've gotten some feedback on this, they're like, dude, I'm in my 20s. I can't imagine, 70 years from now when I'm, 100 years old. Okay, fine. I respect that. That's called future self continuity. When you can imagine yourself very connected to that person in the future. And I did not have that. Like, it's hard for me to imagine myself at 100 years old, but that's called future self discontinuity. So anyway, think about maybe the next major milestone. Okay, so what would that be? Maybe it's you're turning 30. Maybe you're turning 40. Maybe it's your next high school reunion. Maybe it is your kids graduating from high school or from college. In probably 4 or 5 years, I'll be graduating with my PhD. Maybe that could be a milestone for me. But either way, again, or we've got a 3-year-old daughter, maybe when she starts driving or whatever. Right? But my point is, what would be that next milestone for you to create a personal vision around? And just think about what you would say during that time. All right. So that is the personal vision. And when you're looking at personal vision, that's the main circuit breaker. Let's look at business vision. Let's unpack the business vision. When you're talking about business vision is made up of 3 components. 3 components. And these 3 components are absolutely critical. Whenever I get hired and brought into an organization and they are telling me about what's going on and what dysfunctions they're experiencing and what problems they have and what changes they're trying to make. And anytime I'm looking for dysfunction, it is in one or more of these 3 areas. I'm just telling you, it is universal. And the reason for that is because these 3 things define the DNA of your company. So the 3 C's of business vision are around core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Core purpose, core values, client avatar. So let's talk about core purpose. The core purpose of your business is specifically what business are you in, and specifically what problems do you solve. And it is really important that you be highly specific in your answers. If you're just saying, well, I'm in IT, or well, I'm in real estate, that doesn't tell me much, does it? That's why I asked you specifically, what business are you in? Like, where are you from and what business are you in? Because if you're telling me that you're in IT, okay, granted, I know my question was a little vague to you, but if you can't answer specifically what business that you're in, do you think it's going to get magically more clear when it leaves your lips to someone else's ears? No, it never gets more clear. If anything, it gets more murky. So really what it is that I'm doing is I educate. I educate and bring business owners to a higher level of clarity through education. That's what I do. And I work as a strategist. That's part of my core purpose. That's really what I do. I educate, I guide, I help set plans, I help them create plans. That's what I help them do. Sometimes I have to assume a couple of different roles in order to do that, but that's my core purpose. So understanding your core purpose and being obnoxious about what you don't do is really important when you're defining your core purpose of your business. Let's look at core values. So we talked about core purpose. Your core values are what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business? That's a good primer. Those are 2 good primer questions to consider when you're thinking about your core values. So a lot of times you have to keep this in mind, that you as a business owner, that our businesses are just extensions of us, right? So your business is just an extension of you. So when you're bringing in your personal core values, you're also infusing those into your business. You're not going to want to create a business that has core values that are misaligned with your personal core values, right? Has anybody, go ahead and type it in the chat. You don't have to say who, but have you ever worked for someone whose core values didn't align with yours? Have you ever worked for someone whose core values did not align with yours? I will tell you I have, and I will tell you that it sucks, because all those decisions are against the grain of what you stand for, what you believe. And maybe maybe you had a boss like that, maybe you had a manager like that, whatever. Maybe you just had coworkers like that. But whatever it is, it's a miserable experience when you're working alongside people who don't align with your core values. And you might be thinking, okay, well, how do you define your core values? It's actually quite simple. And I know there's ways where it's like, okay, you get to a list of 100 values and you circle the top 20 and then you whittle it down to the top 3 or something like that. That's fine, I suppose. But I'm going to give you a different way to look at it. I want you to think of, we all walk around with a set of values, right? Like, I value peanut M&Ms, but I'm not going to go to war over peanut M&Ms. Someone breaks in my house and threatens my family, they're going to be met with war, okay? Because that is something that's a core value of mine. I have a value, again, I value peanut M&Ms, but I don't value them so much that I'm willing to box over them, right? But because it's not a core value. But so where the line in the sand is that when you know a value is a core value. When you're willing to get up off the couch and take action, when you're willing to do something about it, that's how you know something is a core value. So when you're defining the core values of your organization, think about those extremes in your life. Think about the extremely good things in your life and that have happened, and think about the extremely bad things that have happened in your life, right? And Michelle's saying, yes, several times you've probably been around someone who did not align with your core values, and it was a disaster every time. That's exactly right, Michelle. And I'll ask you something else, Michelle, or anyone else who'd like to comment. Have you ever had a friend who like wandered off the reservation in life and was heading down a path that you couldn't follow, and you had to let them go as a friend? That was probably because it violated a core value for you. And that's how you know something is a core value. So again, and I've had that with friends. I've had that with romantic interests. Like before I met my bride, I mean, I had other things where the wonderful thing is, even though there's been times where my bride and I have really struggled in our marriage, but we did align, we still aligned in our core values. That's how I knew we were going to be able to make it, because we still aligned in our core values. It was when other people whose core values I didn't align with that I really struggled. And that was just the way it is, right? So that's when you know that something's a violation of a core value, when you're willing to let someone go because they don't align. And it can still be heartbreaking, but that's what happens, all right? So when you're defining these core values, and the reason why these core values, and I know you're thinking, Mike, why is he spending so much time on this? This is so squishy. Just stick with me for another minute, and then we'll move on to the client avatar. But the reason why this is so important is because the company culture is defined by these core values. The core values are defining the company culture. And the company culture and the company brand are inextricably linked. You cannot separate the two. And why that's so important is because what's being experienced internally by the people inside the organization is your company core values. What's experienced by the people outside the organization is the company brand. And all of those are defined by the core values. So I'm just telling you, if you really want to build a company that can scale and attract the type of people to your organization that you want to work with, meaning not just your customers, but also the people you're going to hire, that's why defining your core values is so important. Okay, again, we're talking about growing and scaling. You're not going to be able to do that if you're going to be bringing in a bunch of people who are misaligned with your core values. I'm just telling you, it's going to waste a lot of time. Ask me how I know. All right. So when you're looking, so we talk core purpose, we talk core values. Now let's talk about your client avatar. Your client avatar is who specifically and ideally do you want to serve. So when you're thinking about who specifically you want to serve, I want you to think about them in terms of their geographics, their demographics, and their psychographics. So again, geographics is pretty straightforward. Geographics is where they are. Demographics is who they are. Are they married? Are they single? Are they old? Are they young? Are they wealthy? Are they not? Are they educated? Are they not? Like, again, what are their demographics? And also their psychographics. Their psychographics is how they think and how they buy. How they think and how they buy. Let's look at psychographics a little deeper. Psychographics, I want you to think of the phrase ALIA, A-L-I-A, and that's their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations and their goals. So when you're thinking about their attitudes, what is their attitude towards your product or service? Do they have an antagonistic attitude towards it? Or are they apathetic? Or did they not even know anything about it? What's their attitude on education? Most of the people that I attract value education. Most of the people that I attract value family values. They tend to have faith. They put religion is kind of a big deal for them. Maybe not religion so much, but faith in God is a kind of a big deal for them, right? So their attitudes. Then those who don't, they don't stick around. They don't like my face. That's okay. That's because you want to be, when you're trying to grow, you want to be polarizing. You want to be magnetic. And a magnet has two poles, right? It's got one that's going to attract and one that's going to repel. That's okay. I don't want the people who don't want me in my atmosphere breathing my air. I want the people in my atmosphere breathing my air. And guess what? I started out at one point, there was 17 people on this call, okay? And now there is 11. Okay, that means either people got busy or hated my face. Probably the latter of the two, okay? But that's okay. But once you understand their attitudes and their lifestyle would be like, are they traveling a lot? Are they young and jet setting? Or are they young and homebodies? Or are they old and homebodies? Or are they middle aged and they're raising teenagers? Whatever. What is their lifestyle like? What are their interests? Do they read? Do they knit? Do they like cats? Do they like dogs? Do they like NASCAR or do they like Formula One? Whatever. Once you understand their interests, again, you can connect with them based on affinity. Affinity is something I talk about in Marketing Magic. I think I'm doing Marketing Magic tomorrow if you'd like to find it on Eventbrite. And that's for free. So that's the interests that they have. Then you're going to be talking about the aspirations and goals. If you understand someone's goals, it's going to be really easy for you to help them get there because they're going to be very connected to what it is that you have. That's important. So you got to know you got to know as many of these areas that you could possibly know around your client avatar is really going to help you reach them in your marketing. And all three of these, core purpose, core values, and client avatar, is really what defines the DNA of your company. There's just no getting away around this. And if you don't take the time to define this, you're just going to end up frustrated and banging your head against the ground, and you're not going to experience the level of growth that you're trying to experience. So let's get into, so that is the vision piece, personal vision, business vision. Let's talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure is the bones of the business. It's things like your desks and your chairs, your software, your phone systems, things like that. And, even your websites and even ways like where you can process credit cards and things like that. These are all pieces of infrastructure that are important to you. It's a very, very critical component to your business. In fact, it's probably one of the most neglected, but most important components of the business. And if you're thinking, okay, well, Mark, in the Viper framework, if infrastructure is so important, why doesn't it come first? Why does vision come before infrastructure? I'm glad you asked. I'll be happy to tell you. The reason why vision has to come first is because that's the main circuit breaker. Let's pretend, for argument's sake, that Michelle, let's say that she has a vision, a personal vision, where she wants to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly. Laying on the beach, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly. Okay, fine vision. Now, if she builds an infrastructure where she has to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a horrible experience when she's trying to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year, rubbing cocoa butter on her belly. Make sense? So again, you're going to create this infrastructure that's in alignment with your vision for the future. So that's the infrastructure component. So we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure. Now let's talk about process. Process is simply how you do things, and it has two components. It has tactical and it has strategic. Let's talk about tactical. Tactical process, the tactical component of process, is basically how you do stuff from day to day. It's your standard operating procedures. It's your checklist items. It's just your basic day-to-day activities. It's your opening procedures and your closing procedures and how you answer the phone and how you prepare bank deposits and all of the various things day to day. It's the boring stuff that no one wants to take time to actually catalog and put this stuff down in terms of how it gets done every day. But if you do that stuff every day, when someone leaves and you already have this standard operating procedure manual and you hand it over to them, that can really facilitate other people being hired much, much faster. So again, if you're looking to grow and scale, spend time actually documenting, not you, have the people doing the work, documenting what it is that they do, and that can become a procedural manual. It's an easy way to do it, right? So when you're looking at this, now, from the infrastructure and tactical part of process, if I drew a box around infrastructure and the tactical part of process, that is the system that you created for your business. So you might be thinking, well, what do I mean by system? Think of this system as like, that's the ship that you built. That's the battleship. That's the warship. And that ship is now sitting in the harbor. But ships are not meant to sit in the harbor, right? Because if it's just sitting up, moored against the harbor, against the dock, it's just going to get banged around by whatever economic winds happen to be blowing around at the time. So no, you have to be strategic. In order to be strategic, that's what's going to take that ship out of the harbor. And that's what strategy does. So you've got this infrastructure and process. You want to take this, you want to drive this boat in some specific direction rather than just, getting blown around by whatever economic winds happen to come along. So that's what strategic planning does. When you're thinking about strategic planning, there's 3 components to that. There are people, there are purpose, and promotion. I'm going to do these really fast. People is who you need. It's not, you're going to need other people outside of you. People could also be your clients who you're trying to attract, right? Who does that sound like? Sounds like your client avatar, right? That we talked about back in the 3 C's. Okay. So that could be the client avatar. The people could be your client avatar, but also could be who are you trying to attract to help you. You're going to need help. You might need marketing help. You might need strategy, right? You might need a wealth planner. You might need employees to help you with sales, whatever. But you need to think of the people component in your strategic plan. Someone probably more than just you, because you're not going to be able to leverage and do it all by yourself. You're just not going to capitalize on the efforts of others. So that's people. The purpose, the reason for the purpose, it could be to expand market share. It could be to roll out a new product, roll out a new service. It could be to vertically integrate into the market that you're currently in by uplining or something along those lines. Like, that's really important when you're thinking about your purpose, your strategic purpose. And guess what the strategic purpose also has to be in alignment with? Think 3 C's, right? Yeah, right. It has to be in alignment with your core purpose. Why is that? Because I don't know how many people out there, probably all of you, and I say this with love in my heart, but many of you who are in the, especially who are these serial entrepreneurs, you have an idea every time you get out of the shower for this new business idea that you want to have. Ask me how I know. Well, having this strategic purpose, it has to align with your core purpose. Because if it doesn't, this would be like Starbucks trying to sell chainsaws. It doesn't make any sense. You're like, wait a minute, why are we selling chainsaws? Like, well, because we can, right? That doesn't make any sense. And that's how you start to wander and getting that shiny object syndrome. So this is why you have to be really clear in your strategic purpose, as long as it's in alignment with your core purpose and doesn't get too far away from that. The last component of this is promotion. So we talked people, of who you need. We talked the purpose of the strategic purpose of the strategic plan, and the promotion. Promotion is just saying things a lot to a lot of different people. So what I mean by this is, if you've ever raised teenagers, you kind of know what I'm talking about. It's basically repeating yourself a lot, and not just to the people in your organization, and not just to people outside your organization, but to both. Promoting it means you're saying this plan over and over and over again, multiple times. So again, it's not just saying something once and thinking that people get it. It's saying something 50 times and thinking that people are just starting to get it. That's what promotion is. All right. So in a nutshell, those are the 3 things. So people, purpose, and promotion. So when you're looking, and I'm going to put the fries in the bag on process, you've got tactical and you've got strategic, and you need both of those things. So we talked vision, infrastructure, process. Now let's look at execution. So execution, this is one of my favorite quotes by General George S. Patton, is a good plan violently executed now is better than the perfect plan executed next week. And I see this oftentimes where, especially for people who are these perfectionist types, where, well, once it's absolutely perfect, then I'll do the XYZ thing. And it's just, it's one of those things where perfectionists really kind of shoot themselves in the foot. And the reason why that execution even has its own component within the Viper framework is because most plans fall apart in their execution. And planning becomes just another form of procrastination. And this is something else where I also often see where business owners, particularly and entrepreneurs, they will often have way too many priorities, where, you have that list of 37 things you're going to do today, right? Am I right? Okay. Again, I'm not here to judge. This is not judgment. This is confession, because I've done the same exact things. That the reality is, when you have too many priorities, it has the same impact as having no priorities. And that is why I prefer to operate within a daily 5 framework. So the daily 5, what this means is, these are the 5 up to 5 up to 5, not like 5 and times 10, but I'm talking about 5 highly specific actions that you can take, which are going to move the needle towards your vision. This right here is part of my daily 5. Now, if I'm going to be honest, I can't do 5 every day. I just won't have the bandwidth to do 5 every day. I will burn out. For me, 3 is kind of the optimal. Maybe you're different. Maybe you're daily 5. Maybe you can do daily 5. But I'm saying don't do more than 5. Because if you're starting to do more than 5, I'm telling you those individual 5 items are probably pretty weak. So, I mean, make them like, again, I had to spend about a half hour prior to this reviewing my slides and my notes and being prepared for this and making sure I'm showing up and doing all the things and making sure that all of the different stories that I'm going to tell, that I've got those situated in my mind. That takes time. So this is about a 2-hour endeavor for me all together. That's one of my daily 5 items. So that's what I'm talking about, is a highly specific action that you can take that's just going to move the needle towards your vision or your strategic plan, either one. So that is the vision, infrastructure, process, execution. Last component is reporting. And reporting is just seeing how you're doing. And I do that by tracking both lead metrics and lag metrics. Lead metrics are basically, those are based on the actions and activities. So these are the things that you actually do. And the lag metrics are the results of those actions and activities. So out of these two things, what do you have more control over? Do you have control over the results, or do you have control over your actions and activities? Well, obviously you have control over your actions and activities. You can control those things. You don't have any real direct control over the results. I didn't have any direct control over who showed up. I certainly don't have any direct control over who stays. But I do have control over how prepared I'm going to be. I do have control over how much promotion I did of this, et cetera, et cetera, right? So that's what I'm talking about when you're thinking about lead metrics and lag metrics. I like to make sure that I'm tracking a lot of my actions and activities as well as my lag metrics. What are the results? If I don't get the results I want, I just do different activities, or I do more of it until the data are showing me something different. So if I have 1,000 data points and I'm not getting the results, I have to shift. And that's the metric that's worked pretty well for me. All right, so that's the systems component. Let's talk psychology. So in the psychology, systems are great. Systems are absolutely important, but systems are only going to get you so far. So when you're looking at systems offer stability, they offer consistency, and they offer accountability. However, systems are limited. They are tough when it comes to making subjective decisions. Adapting to rapid market changes is tough for systems. And coming up with creative solutions and maintaining human connections. Not talking AI bots and things like that. I'm talking about the human side of the equation. I had someone who purchased something, one of my money and finance course, and he's from Glens Falls. And I was like, oh, cool, right? Like, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I know where that is. That's north of Albany in New York. I grew up in New York. I actually knew where that I kind of know where it is. And I was like, oh, how about that? So again, called, left a message, just made sure that they were able to get logged in and all that. But it was just thought it was a neat little thing about having a human connection, because I knew where that is, right? It's not a teeny tiny little town, but it's small. So we're talking about the psychology component. And when you're looking at psychology, there's a couple different components to think about when you're thinking specifically around the business psychology. There is personal and individual psychology, and there is business and organizational psychology. So when you're thinking about personal psychology, you're thinking of things like self-worth, self-management, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, things like that. When you're thinking about business psychology, I want you to think about external and internal. Let's look at business psychology from both an external and internal perspective. The external business psychology relates to things like buying psychology and vendor negotiations, and even things like politics. Like, I'm not talking office politics. I'm talking like in the political spectrum, left wing, right wing. That's what I'm talking about. And again, you get big enough in your organization, in your community, you will start attracting political attention. It's just the way it works. So I'm just preparing you that now. When you're looking at internal business psychology, you're looking at things like management and leadership. And the management and leadership is really important. So let's look specifically at the leadership component, because the leadership component, in my mind, has so much more influence over all the other functions. And I look at this through what I call the three pillars model of leadership, which is around trust, which is around vision, and around communication. There are so many components to leadership that are absolutely important, absolutely critical. In fact, one of the main elements that many people over the course of time, it was a book called The Leadership Challenge by Jim Kouzes and Barry Posner. Phenomenal book. It reads like a textbook though, so I'm just telling you, it's a heavy one, and it's actually heavy. Like it weighs a lot. Do I have it? Yeah, I actually have it right here. Sorry, I'm going a little off script here. So this is the book. It's heavy, like it's physically weighty. That's because all the pages inside are actually glossy covered textbook type material. But in this thing, they really talked. It was one element here where they talked about how much that credibility really makes a difference, and how much that people really valued the honesty component of a leader, and how much trust actually matters. So they can have all these other things that they're funny and they're nice and they're this and they're that, but the thing is that they don't have trust, you're not going to be an effective leader, and you may never know why. So think about it. You could have someone that they have a really good vision of the future. They are an excellent communicator, but if you don't trust them, you're not going to follow them. What if you did trust them, but their vision wasn't a vision that you had any part of? What if it was their vision and not a shared vision? When it's their vision and not a shared vision, again, people are not going to follow you, because it's not, you're not going to be as effective as a leader. Vision has to be shared. It has to be something where other people feel like they have a stake in it. People are much more inclined to carry a ball that they helped inflate. That's critical. And again, if you're trying to grow your organization, you have to be an effective leader. So again, having a shared vision. So the other component of this, let's say they trust you. Let's say that there is a shared vision, but you're a terrible communicator. Let's say you drop F-bombs every other word, or you type in all caps every time, or you have communication, but you don't have it often enough. Those are problems. And again, you will be a leader, but you're not going to be as effective as you could be. All three of these elements are absolutely critical. So again, if you're looking at all three, then are there other components that are necessary? Absolutely. But these three are critical. If you don't have these three, I'm telling you, all the other ones are going to be massively irrelevant. You have to have trust. You have to have the ability to have a shared vision, and you have to be able to be an effective communicator. It's just the way it is. So you might be thinking, well, does leadership really matter that much? Yeah. So right now I'm writing my next book called Leader Boss. It's the Time Wealthy Leader Boss. And it's around this whole concept of caring and candor. And most people who struggle, they tend to have, most of the people that I tend to attract tend to be more too caring. And it's like, oh, I'm just too caring. I like people too much. I respect that. The problem with that is they walk all over you. And that's the problem with having too much caring and not enough candor. So when you have too much candor, you're like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to do this. And now you're like policy driven, and you're like really legalistic. And you're like, well, I'm going to make sure that if they 1 minute late, I'm going to write them up. And 2 times I'm going to fire them. Like, that's too much candor. Well, then you're never going to get buy-in from them. You're never going to get any more effort out of them than what they will clock in. They will check their brain at the door, shut their mouth, and clock out. Don't ask them to work 1 minute later. So they will not give you any discretionary effort whatsoever. And that's the problem. So in my view, I think you have to have equal parts of caring and candor. And when you do, you end up being what's called a level 5 leader. And this is something that Jim Collins talked about in Good to Great, Great by Choice. And I think he might have even mentioned it in Built to Last. But these level 5 leaders, and I think John Maxwell, he talked about a level 5 leader. They defined them a little bit differently, but these level 5 leaders, what main premise they had was they always put their organizations before them. They always put their organizations and their people and their customers before themselves. And that was a big component. That was a big a big definition around being a level 5 leader. And these companies were significantly more profitable. They grew much faster, and they had a very strong company culture. And what do you think they also had? Yep, they had a defined set of core values. Oh my gosh, it's showing up again like a bad penny. Right? But what companies am I talking about? These companies up here. These are just a handful of the companies. This was excerpted from Great by Choice by Jim Collins and Morton Hansen. But these companies here, they were tracked over the course of 30 years. And look at their market returns. 24 times. I'm not talking 24%, I'm talking 24 times the market. Versus Southwest Airlines, which is 63 times the market. Imagine investing $1,000 in Southwest versus $1,000 in the overall market. You'd be 63 times richer. That's what I'm talking about. So leadership has a huge component to this. And often the 100 best places to work, those companies that are on those lists by Forbes, I think there's several others, they frequently represent the highest stock returns. So leadership, in my mind, makes a huge difference. And that's partly because growth requires change, and leadership is what manages that change. And again, I hear this all the time, man, how do I get my people to care as much as I do? Or I feel like I should be much further along in my business. That's where leadership comes in. And the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. Your team cannot outpace your ability to lead them. So if you take forever to make decisions, I'm telling you, you have to learn to start setting that stuff aside. And this is also important in the context of execution. Remember the E in the Viper framework? That's why you have to set the pace by executing quickly. You may not have perfect information, and that's just the nature of the world. Okay? So again, this is where you have to make sure as the leader that you're setting the pace. So we talked about systems, we talked about psychology. Now let's talk about the 4 core functions of business. The 4 core functions of business are true in every single business. And these 4 functions of lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting, these are the functions that your client is experiencing your business, and they're experiencing your business in that order. First lead generation, then sales, then operations, then accounting. And that's exactly how it works. They experience you through your marketing and outreach or your networking or whatever. Then the conversation is closed in the sales conversation. Then they're handed over to fulfillment in the operational function. And then, of course, you get paid, and then the vendors get paid. So that is the 4 core functions of business. And it has to be true in every business. And that is the framework that the Viper method and the leadership framework, the trust, vision, communication framework, all of that is being viewed through those lenses of the 4 core functions of business. So now with all that organized, now let's talk about growing and scaling. So what does that look like? When you're looking at the lead generation function, again, that's the first of the 4 core functions of business. So hold on one second here. Oh, hey, Mr. Ochoa. Gary and I flew together in the Marine Corps. Great points, great perspective. Still in real estate, brother. Got to drop off. No, it's not your face, sort of. Okay, thank you. It's good to see you. So this is when you're talking about the 4 core functions of business. When you're looking at lead generation, this is when you're targeting your client avatar. And when you're targeting your client avatar and having it defined, you know exactly who it is you want to work with. And it's much easier for you to direct your marketing towards those people because you know who they are. And these are the people who tend to bring the most amount of money and bring the least amount of drama. And they're also going to be raving fans of your business because they really appreciate what it is that you're doing. So the 4 core functions of business, everything starts and ends with your ability to generate and create leads. So I want to put this up here, the 15 reasons why people buy, because this is going to help you get really dialed in. I'll take myself off the screen so you can see it. And you can maybe take a screenshot of it. But what you want to do is you want to look at the 15 reasons why people will buy. Why, like they're going to buy to make money and save time, avoid effort, to make things easy, right? Escaping pain, which could be physical pain or emotional pain, sometimes spiritual pain. They want more comfort. They want better health. They want to feel, and better health, by the way, could also be in the form of less stress. They want to feel more love. They want to gain praise. They want to increase their status with their tribe. People will buy for truth, and they will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. That is very important. They will buy for growth. That could be growth in their knowledge, growth in their faith, growth in their wellness. They will buy for novelty, just because something is new and improved. That is, we've all seen that. They'll buy for more perceived control or more certainty, and they'll buy to be in contribution to others. So why is this important? What are you going to do with this? All right, so now that you've got this list, you'd say, great, well, what does this have to do with the price of tomatoes? What I want you to do is I want you to make this list. Yes, this is homework because this is going to help you. Now, you can't do this unless you have a really well-defined avatar. Once your avatar is defined, this is going to really help you in your marketing and helping you to attract the people to your organization. So you might be thinking, okay, well, I want you to think of this. What are all the ways, directly or indirectly, Jalen or Michelle or whoever's out there, what are all the ways, directly or indirectly, that you can help someone make money? Come up with 5 or 10 reasons. And again, they can be directly or indirectly. I want you to think, well, I'm a chiropractor. How do I help people make money? Well, maybe they don't have to take time off work because you can fix them and get them up and running, get them in shape. Let's say they're an attorney and they're sitting there trying to prepare a legal brief and they can't because their back hurts so bad. But then because you, as a chiropractor, you can take same day appointments, you get them sorted out, you get them sent back, and they're in good shape. Right? Make sense? So again, you can't directly help them make money, but you could indirectly. Make sense? So that's what I want you to think about. What are all the ways, directly or indirectly, you help people save money or save time, directly or indirectly, or feel more love or increase their status or whatever? So do this with all 15 of these things. And now all of a sudden, if you came up with 10 for each of them, and granted, some of them are going to be a little squirrely. I get that. But the point is, now you're starting to think of all the different ways that you can reach these people and how your product or service can help them directly or indirectly. Does that make sense? So again, this is where you could keep an open list on your phone. Just be mindful that most of these ideas are probably going to come in the most inconvenient time. Like you're driving down the interstate or you're standing in the shower. It's just the nature of how your alpha state works when you're trying to be creative. So just think about this and take some time over the course of a couple of weeks and figure out all the different ways that people, that in terms of why your product or service can help them in those 15 different ways. And here's the thing. Everything needs to support your lead generation function. The accounting function needs to support lead generation. The fulfillment function also needs to support the lead generation function. And why? You might be thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. Yes, it does, because the lead generation function is your company's ability to get air. Because here's the truth. You can have the best, most efficient business and be an absolute paragon of truth, justice, and virtue. Your sales technique's so dialed in that you can sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro, and you can still starve. That's the truth. It doesn't matter how good all that other stuff is if you don't have the ability to generate leads. So you can never, ever, ever take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. So these lead generation activities, especially if you're a solopreneur, and I would argue even around a growing enterprise, need to comprise about 60 to 70% of your total activities. And you're thinking, well, if I work a 10-hour day, that's 6 or 7 hours? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. If you have several people working for you, yes, over the total of the hours, 60 to 70% of those activities need to be around lead generation activities if you're trying to grow. And you might be thinking, that'd be tough to do. Okay, but if you did, if this is what you were doing, you could be terrible at sales and still do really, really well. You could have a horrible product and still do pretty well, right? I mean, we want good products and services. We want to do business ethically and morally. But I'm just saying, like, nothing else has to be as dialed in as long as you're doing your lead generation activities. So again, make sure that you have your lead generation activities so you are not dying on the vine when all of a sudden you're really super busy, leads dry up, now you're out of business. Because that's exactly what happens. When you're talking, so we talked about the lead generation function. Now we're talking about the sales function, and the sales function just continues the conversation that started by the lead generation function. And a good sales function is really about understanding effective selling. Is about finding solutions, not holding people's heads underwater until they say yes. That's really important to remember. So when you're having these selling conversations, that's all they are, is just selling conversations. I talk more about that in I have a selling one-to-one Eventbrite. I think that's coming up next week maybe, but you can always track on that one. So the operational function, generally, if you're going to get stuck, this is where you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck in the operational function. And, you get stuck doing the massages, you get stuck doing the payroll, you get stuck doing the bookkeeping, you get stuck doing, putting on roofs or building websites, whatever. If you're going to get stuck, that's generally where you get stuck in the operational function of your business. So whatever your business does, that's generally where people get stuck. If you're going to ignore something, you're generally going to ignore the accounting. And it usually sounds something like this. Well, I have more money in my bank account this month than last month. I must be doing okay. Look, I have an accounting degree and I have said those exact words. Okay. So you want to make sure that you don't neglect your accounting function. Again, that's the boot camp that I have coming up. If you're like, no, I'm just not a numbers person. Look, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You have to learn how to understand the numbers. And I'm just here to tell you, even if you think that you're not a numbers person, accounting and bookkeeping isn't about numbers, it's about rules. And if you can understand solitaire, if you can understand the game of Candyland, you can understand accounting and bookkeeping. And I'm telling you, if you want to get to the next level, you have to have a basic understanding of balance sheet and income statement stuff. And that's what I'm going to be doing at the boot camp if you're interested. But just get out some books and learn this stuff. It's not hard. You can learn this. It's not difficult. If you can do what you're doing, chances are you already have the level of sophistication and requisite variety of knowledge to do this. But it is going to be important for you to know this stuff. So let me ask you, the lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting functions, are they all the same skill set? No, I'm going to answer that for you. Of course they're not. And that is why most business owners can't do all four, is because they're very different skill sets and they tend to be good at the one thing that they're good at, and they never really spend much time on the others, and that's why they struggle. So when you are bringing other people into your organization, guess what you're going to align them with? You're going to align them and bring them in based around your set of core values. See how this is all coming full circle? And this is how you're going to grow and scale your business in a very positive direction. But you can't do it with I've got that figured out, but I don't have these two, but I'm not going to worry about those. Just telling you, this is the framework. And this is the difference between growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. When you bring in people that they are leaders in their fields, and these are people who are really good at what they do, and rather than just hiring a body, you're growing by multiplication versus growing by just addition. You're not growing by just a person. You're growing by all the experience that they bring because they are leaders in the organization. They're leaders in their field, and you really know who you're working with. When you hire and bring other people in as vendors or whatever else that is, that's a difference between when you're hiring experts versus hiring whoever's cheapest. That's a difference between growing by multiplication versus growing by addition. So listen, we're going to land the plane here. But if you want to grow, or especially if you're looking to scale, you have to have the right systems in place. You have to have great leadership. You yourself, you have to have great leadership so you know when you've got the right systems, you know how to lead these people within that system. Your lead generation actions and activities have to be 60 to 70% of your daily 5. I'm just saying, like, your daily 5, they have to encompass those lead generation activities that are within your daily 5 that are going to move the needle toward your strategic plan or your vision. They have to be 60 to 70% of your daily activities. That's just minimum. And the last component of this is hire and develop leaders. Hire and develop leaders that are leaders and experts within their fields. So you can be good at what you're good at, you can be great at what you're great at, and they can be great at what they're great at. So don't try to be a master of all things. So that is everything there. So a couple of just resources. I will stick around for some questions if you've got any, but go ahead and type your questions in. If I don't have any questions by the end, I'll just land the plane. But again, I asked you in the very beginning, I talked about different resources here. I asked you in the very beginning about seeking knowledge to understand versus seeking knowledge to take action. So what specific things are you going to be taking action on? And that's going to be really important for you to think about. So a couple of different resources that I have I have a school community, and it's on Strategic Boardroom, where it's the Strategic Boardroom community on School. I'll go ahead and put the link up there if you are interested. I have a couple of different areas, I suppose, or levels. If you are interested, if you're just interested in just being part of the community, there's a lower priced option. If you're wanting one-to-one coaching with me, depends on how frequently you want that type of coaching. You can also sign up for that. I'll put the link again in the comments section there. So if you want that, you can, again, you can sign up for that, whether you're wanting coaching one-to-one with me once a month or you're wanting coaching more frequently. It just depends on how fast you're wanting to go. The last component here is this boot camp, which is the Money and Finance Business Owner Boot Camp. This is something that, again, if you are struggling with understanding your business finances, this is going to be a session that you will not want to miss. It's $39. It is very low cost. I wanted to keep the cost low, so if people are actually struggling, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put this link up here in the. Oops, hold on. That's it. So I'm putting this link here in the comment section if you're interested, and if you're watching this on replay, I'll be sure to put it in the description as well. So Michelle, I'll get to your question here in one hot second. So the Money and Business or Money and Finance Business Owners Boot Camp. This is specifically a boot camp for business owners understanding your balance sheets, your income statements, your chart of accounts, your general ledger, and all sorts of different things that you need to know as a business owner. And in addition to this, you also get full access to the Money and Finance video course on the other side of the training. So it's 3 hours worth of training, plus I'll be sticking around for Q&A, and you also get access to the Money and Finance video course, which is going to take you way further, because that course by itself has got a lot of different stuff in there about learning how to understand your finances from a bankable perspective. Because again, this is about being strategic, but it's also about being bankable and about how to learn how to borrow in the name of a business, but also what to do when you start making money, what to do with that money, and how to track and pay attention to all that stuff, and how to start parking money in a very tax advantage way. It's a very granular course, and it would be something that I would really encourage you, especially if you're looking to take your money game to the next level. So I'll let you noodle on that. Michelle, odd subject. Do I remember right that you have a class on ADHD in business? So I talked about that a little bit. So I do have a session. I actually did a session on this a long time ago, but I've not done it yet. Maybe I should resurrect that one. But the issue that I have, I want to make sure that people understand, I'm not like a licensed therapist or anything like that. I've only learned things that are based on research that I have done. So for example, there is a book here, this is a book here that is phenomenal. It's called ADHD 2.0. And it's mercifully short because, ADHD. So it's only like 150 pages, but it was written by these two medical doctors. I think they actually are psychiatrists. But Edward Hollowell and John Rady, it's a really, really good book, ADHD 2.0, but I've also read multiple books. I'm trying to find several of the others that I've read. Oh, this is a good one too. You mean I'm not lazy, crazy? You mean I'm not lazy, stupid, or crazy? This one was decent, but I've read a bunch of others, and I've done a lot of research on the topic of ADHD, and also why entrepreneurs who tend to have ADHD also tend to flock towards entrepreneurship, why business owners tend to flock towards entrepreneurship. And I think it suits them well. So I have done one a long time ago, but maybe I'll bring that back around again, Michelle. I'm not, no, it's a really good question. So no, your memory is right. I just, I have not done one in a really long time. It sounds like you and I have met. I feel like you know me. So, yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that up. Okay. So Kino's saying amen. I agree. Amen. I think I did a session with you on ADHD. I think so. Clearly, yes, I think so too. Well, it's good to have you guys around. All right, everybody, thanks so much for your comments today. Thanks so much for sticking around. You guys have been a lot of fun. And if I see you in other trainings, that's great. You can go to Eventbrite and see what else there is. If the business owner money, the money and finance business owner bootcamp isn't quite your flavor, I've got plenty of other things out there for you. Some free, some not free, but either way, I will see you guys in the boardroom. Take good care.